Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Military Transition Wellness, the podcast dedicated exclusively to those transitioning from military service. I'm your host, Michelle Seiling, and today we have the illustrious Trina Martin here. She has got a fantastic track record of Army and Navy experience, and today we are talking about resilience. And Trina, you are just the person to talk about resilience. Welcome to the show. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to be informed as new episodes become available. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of our episodes, please rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform. As always, check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some resources as you begin your health journey.
Thank you, Michelle, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we are happy to have you here. Will you take a moment to introduce yourself and wanting to do 2 branches of service and your other experiences?
Wow. Oh, great. Thank you. Well, as you said, I am Trina L. Martin. I am a retired naval officer. I served for 30 years. I am also the CEO and founder of Trina L. Martin International, where I help women, especially women of color, advance in tech and companies to help hire, promote, and retain them. My journey to the military started out as something that I kind of stumbled into. I'm the first in my family to go to college. I am the youngest of 4 children. So I grew up in Chicago, product of inner city Chicago, single mother. Went to college and it was all self-financed. I had to pay my own way through college. After completing my freshman year in college, I realized that grants and loans and things like that weren't going to be enough. And on campus, I saw other students in ROTC and being in the reserves. And I had a roommate at the time who was actually in the Army Reserves. And she encouraged me to do that because she said you could get the GI Bill and just all of these great benefits. And I said, okay, great. That's what I want to do. So that summer after my freshman year, I went and enlisted into the Army. And military people can relate to this. Of course, you go to the recruiter, and the recruiter is the used car salesmen of the military, right? They have quotas, they have to get people in. So sometimes they say and they do things that are not quite accurate. I will say that as far as to get you in. And my recruiter at the time, he said, "Yeah, we have this field here. It's chemical. It has this $20,000 bonus, and you'll be great for it." Of course, I'm a poor college student. I said, "Oh my God, $20,000? That's a lot of money. Yeah, that's what I want to do." I said, "Well, chemicals, will I be like a chemist in a lab, anything like that?" "Oh, yeah, that's exactly what you're going to be doing. You'll be a chemist in a lab. You'll have a white coat, all of this." Fast forward, now this was 1990, right? And if for those who remember, Desert Storm was going on. We were like in the heat of our little war with Saddam Hussein and whether he had nuclear, biological chemicals, things of that nature. Well, guess what chemical was that I was going to be doing? It was NBC, nuclear, biological chemicals, not a chemist in a lab. So I did like 3 years in the Army. After I got all my training done, they said, "Hey, you're going to Iraq." And I was like, "Oh my God." So here I am, this poor 19-year-old, not really understanding what I had signed up for. But I knew at that moment, I said, "Okay, this is chemicals. I'm going to war. This is serious." Um, Fortunately, I was didn't have to go because at the last minute they said, "Well, we don't need any more ground troops. You don't have to go." After that, I said, "This is not quite what I wanted. Not quite what I wanted." So I transferred to the Navy because I knew people in the Navy, and they said, "Yeah, come over to the Navy. You'll be happier." So what started out as me joining the military as a means to pay for my college education in my only 4 years turned out to be 30 years of service.
Very impressive. Oh, fantastic. So, and your Navy, did you do NBC types of things, or what exactly did you do in the Navy?
No, I started out I was, as an enlisted person, I was a radio man. If those remember back in the day, those were the people who did communications, listened, things like that. That transferred into being IT because I had a computer science degree. And then I ultimately ended up going into intelligence, and that's where I received my commission to become an intelligence officer.
Okay, fantastic. Wow. And I'm sure that career has brought you all over the world with many different experiences.
Yes, like I said, I joined the military just as a means to pay for college. So I thought 4 years, I'm done. But I actually got in and I started enjoying it. I traveled the world. I've been all over the world. I've met people who I would have normally not have met in my normal or usual walk of life. And we are still friends today. So I have friends that I've had for 30 years. And it just, I ended up really enjoying it and just it became part of me. And of course, I'm 50, so did 30 years in. So that was most of my life. That's what I knew as being in the military. But it's like anything else. It had its ups and downs and moments, but it was a great experience for me. And being a girl that grew up in inner city Chicago, I've been to places that I really never even imagined I would go to. Probably at the time, probably really didn't realize they were even on the map. So it has been a great experience for me. And like I said, I have lifelong friends that all over the world that are friends, and we will always be friends because of the relationship and the bond that we formed while serving together.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for your service with both branches of service. Yeah. Now, what was it like for you transitioning to civilian life? I guess with the Army, it wasn't necessarily a transition, maybe just from one branch of service to the other, but perhaps when you were finished your naval career, what was that like? What was that process like?
It's very interesting because I was active duty reserves, reserves, and there is a transition, and it's very funny. And I did a survey a couple of years ago of some of my friends that served as well, and I was asking them how their transition was. But for me, it's different because here you are, you've served in the military, and everyone knows that from day one, the military trains you to be a leader. So, regardless of whatever rank you are trained that you are a leader. And when you transition out of the military into civilian life and into civilian jobs, corporate jobs, whatever you have, they don't view things like that. So, it really kind of upsets me how military people come with vast knowledge and so many experiences and that expertise that is not valued by the civilian world because unfortunately the civilian world takes titles and positions as who are the people who are experienced and know these things, whereas in the military you could be an enlisted person but you still have been trained as a leader and you are good in certain areas and that's valued. So just transitioning there, that's a big change because you're thinking, wow, I was in charge of $1 billion worth of equipment, and here I am now sitting in an office, and they just want me to, be the administrative assistant. So that's just an example. Um, it goes down to even clothes because in the military you have a uniform, and you know what you're going to wear every single day. There's no question about it, right? You know what you're going to wear. There's going to be ceremonies and times where you have to wear a different uniform. But when you get into the civilian world, you got to say, "Wow, okay, I need to go buy clothes because I have to wear something different every day." Um, so many things. Just reintegrating with your family, being at home, not having to travel, and I realized that when I came off a deployment that was a big thing for me is reintegrating into my family because at the time my children were young. I left my son was like not even a year old when I went off for deployment. So I missed a lot of those informative times and years of his life at that moment. So coming back, I felt like an outsider. I was thinking, well, do they know who I am? Do they love me? Do they know that I'm their mother? So you have all of these different layers that I don't think someone outside of the military even considers and thinks about because they have not been put in those shoes. But from transitioning from one job, one career to another career to your family to even something as simple as I have to buy a wardrobe are things that people in the military are concerned about and face once they make that transition.
Okay, yes, a lot of different perspectives. Now, you touched on family a lot in terms of those relationships and kind of rebonding, I suppose. Are there other aspects of wellness that you went through as you transitioned from military?
Just your whole mental state, you have to start looking at things in a different light. So that is something that's very very pertinent and that I want to put on the forefront because you have one set of mind. And it was hard for me because being an officer, I viewed and I looked at things differently and I took charge and did things differently. But then coming out of that, you got to realize that you can't just go in with that military mindset of, this, and this, because other people don't see things like that. And
Mhm.
it was very hard for me mentally to adjust to that because I was like, why are we doing things this way? Why is it like this? So that was one of the things that I found that I had to pull back and really kind of just go with the flow and kind of learn the ropes, even though later on I said, well, hey, this may be better doing it like this. But then also when you talk about your family and that aspect of your well-being is my kids were always used to me going somewhere, being out the country, doing something. And so when I retired, I said, guys, guess what? I'm going to retire. I won't be in the Navy anymore. And they were like, oh, God, great. Does that mean you're not going to be on a plane all the time? And I didn't realize how much it affected them until they said that. And it went over into even like my brother and his wife. I called them when I finally decided I made this announcement. So I was calling like my closest friends and family saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to retire. And everybody was like, thank God, you've been in, you've been in forever. And, I just didn't realize that, but with my kids, it was very important, especially being a single mother, how they felt. And I didn't realize how it affected them, how every time I left, they felt it, even though they didn't say it. And even though I said,
Mhm.
hey, mommy's leaving, I'm going here and I'm going to be gone for this amount of time. And they kind of always said, oh, okay. I guess I thought it was really just okay with them. I never thought that in their hearts, they really didn't want me to go. And it's not that when I was home, they expected me to have this great fanfare. I actually learned that when I was home, that's all they wanted was for me to be home. So even if we were in the house and we did nothing all day but be in the house together, and they could be upstairs in their rooms, I could be in my office. They liked that. They were okay with that. And so that really gave me a different perspective because one, I always thought that, okay, well, I'm doing this because one, I'm in the military. This is my duty. This is how I'm providing for my family. And they'll be okay because they know I'm going to come home. And when I come home, I'm with them and I love them and we'll do something great. But then my daughter just said, I'm just happy you're here. And I said, well, we haven't done anything. She said, I know, but you're just home. So we just like that. So
Oh,
that's something that I didn't think about, but for those out there who are transitioning, it's not the big things. It's just the fact that they have you and they have you back home and they have you there with them. So you don't have to worry about, well, when I get home, we're going to go to Disneyland and we're going to do all these things. Those things are nice, but really they actually just want you there. They want your presence. They want to be able to put eyes on you. And that's what's most important to your family.
I love that. I love just that connection and that kind of indirect resilience and indirect bonding, if you will, with you and with your kids. That's fantastic. Now, you talk a lot about resilience. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what resilience means to you and how it applies to our discussion on transitioning from military service and wellness and those aspects that people who are transitioning need to take into consideration?
Wow. Well, for me, resilience means just never stopping doing it, being relentless, doing it in spite of, doing it
Mm,
when doors are closed, when people don't understand, doing it when it's hard. And I know we all have faced hardships in our life. And for me, it started as a young child, being young as a four, going to college, paying for my own way. And actually, ever since I was about 15, I've been paying and taking care of myself. So that's one of those forms of resilience, and it has not been easy. There's been times where, I'm like, "Okay, I need to put gas in my car. Let me count the change that I have laying around the house." So it's those type of things that but you can't give up. And when you're transitioning, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, you're gonna, wonder why people are not hiring you. You're gonna say, "Well, I have all the experience. They wanna hire me at this lower grade, but I have all the experience. Why is this happening?" I talked to a friend who retired several years before I did, and again, I was asking him, I was like, "What did you find, was your thing that you found that you struggled with when you transitioned?" And he was saying that here he was, a 20-year veteran of the Army, he had, top secret clearance, and he took a job, started working, but they didn't wanna pay him what he was really worth, and
mm,
after a while, he just said, I can't do it. I resigned from that position because I just cannot do what they were saying doing." So you have to be resilient when it comes to that because everybody doesn't equate. your military experience the way that we know it's valued and what we know we have done. So you may get that job and they may not pay you what you're worth, or they may say, well, here you're just exposition, in exposition. We don't care about you, being in charge of equipment or planes or ships and all these great things that we've done. And they just don't have the perspective. And now you got to think about, you're going into a workforce where a lot of millennials, people who are in their late 20s and 30s, are there and in positions that not necessarily they probably should be in. Whereas you think about, okay, at 20 and 30, I was around the world and I was, in charge of, XYZ $1 million of equipment. It's not the same. So that's going to be a frustration of yours. And I've heard that time and time again. I've had that. Friends that I've talked to who have retired have had that same problem. So that seems to be the commonality. But you have to be resilient, because when you encounter that, you're going to get so frustrated. You're going to feel like you're hitting your head against the wall, and you're going to say, why is this? I have this set of expertise, but they don't see it, or they don't want to value it. And you know
Mhm.
what? That's it. And that's kind of one of my things when I go out and speak. I try to educate people on that, because we have experiences and we have traveled the world that the people that they have in leadership don't even, can't even stand up to us and match us. But that's the way of the world that, we live in. We live in the two separate worlds. You got the military, you got the civilian world. And sometimes that's very hard. So you have to make that decision on if that's something that's going to be best for you, if that's something you're going to want and be able to deal with, or if you're going to have to worry about going your own way, whether that's starting your own business or just enjoying your time as being retired, or whatever else that you decide that you want to do.
Okay. So a lot of adaptation, it sounds like.
Yes.
Mm. Now, with your own transition, how did you adapt to that situation with the job experience, and perhaps other types of adaptation that you did when you transitioned?
It was very difficult for me at first, because again, I was that person who was hitting my head against the wall saying, you know, we should be working smarter, not harder. Or how did this person, and this was kind of my thing, how did this person get this position when I have so much more experience as far as a leader? And then you have this person who is in a leadership position, but is not necessarily a leader. So you deal with that. And what I just found myself saying, and it took me a long time to realize this, I had to realize, okay, I can't come in and just bulldoze someone or say, okay, well, in the military, this is how we did it. You gotta have to adjust. You have to adapt, and that's what we do in the military, right? We adapt, adjust, and overcome. So we know how to do that. And as you get in there and you're going, you can kind of say, well, let me give you a different way of thinking about this, or I think this is better to do it that way. But it's not easy, and I'll be the first one to admit it was not easy for me. Just because I'm an outspoken person. I was an officer. So I'm used to saying, hey, this is how it should be and this is how we should do it. But you gotta learn how to adapt and overcome. And we do that better than anyone else. And I really believe that the military, the training we get, and the people who we become and are, we do things, so many things, so much better than just people who have never been in that kind of environment, but we're not valued. And that's another thing that I had to get past, because that would irritate me too. Is like not being valued. And I've talked to people who served like in the Vietnam era, and they were saying the same thing. They were like, yeah, um, that's a frustration, because you think, I've served this country and I've done all of these things, but no one values that. So you just have to really look within yourself. You got to take time. You got to be patient. Talk to other people. Talk to your friends that who have transitioned before you, and ask them how they did. Do a little poll, because that's what I did. I just did the poll of talking to different people and saying, "Hey, give me your viewpoint. Give me your experience. What have you encountered?" And I think you will find so many commonalities among you all, and you'll draw from them on your different ways of how you may be able to deal with a certain situation that you're in.
Mm. Okay. So is it, maybe it's, there are many different experiences in your transition when you were faced with, okay, they feel that you're not qualified or you're not valued. Do you, in some instances, fight for the I want that job, and hey, trying to convince them of your value? Or is it a question of, well, maybe that job's not for me and I need to find some other career field or endeavor? What were your experiences like in that regard?
You know what I've learned as I've become more seasoned? I've learned that I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to put it out there what I bring to the table. And honestly, we have to remember that we're not for everyone. So if there's a job out there who doesn't see and value who you are and what you bring to the table, I wouldn't necessarily say that you fight for it or argue it down because that probably is not the job that you should be at. I eventually turned and said, you know what, I want to just have my own business because there were things that I just got tired of dealing with. And I think that what's for you is for you. And if there is a job that's like, yeah, I'm sorry, we don't kind of see things that way, or we don't think you're a good fit, take that in stride and believe. I say, yeah, you know what? They're probably not a good fit for me either. So there's something
Mm,
out there for you that either that next job, or maybe you've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and have your own business, open up a restaurant, whatever that may have been that has always been in your heart and in your spirit to do. I say pursue it because you can do it. You have it. You've served. Been in combat situations, deployments, all these different things that you know what resilience is. You know what, really working and doing the hard work is. Nothing's going to come easy. It's not going to just be, oh, I got out, I transitioned, and poof, my life is great. You have to work to make things happen. But I think as military people, I think we understand that, and I think that we don't have a problem with that. I think certain people when they're in certain professions, that becomes their identity, that becomes their life. So they don't know how to operate outside of that. But I think as military people, because we travel so much and we've done so many things and we've been, even though we may have a specialty, we're trained and taught that, okay, you're not only going to do that specialty, you're going to do whatever else is needed to get the mission done. So I think that's what we bring as unique people. We know how to get in there, and if it doesn't flow this way, we know how to get somewhere else and make it flow. So you're not pigeonholed, you're not stuck in a box. So yeah, if someone thinks that you're not a good fit for them, say, okay, thank you for your time, and just take it as, yeah, I'm not a good fit for them and they're not a good fit for me. And don't get discouraged because it will happen. Continue to do what you do, be who you are, stand in integrity, and know that you do bring value and someone will see it. And if not, you have that dream that you've always dreamed about. Pursue that.
mm, okay. Now we talked a little bit earlier about mindset and that whole mindset shift. How was that mindset shift for you in transitioning and facing these difficult situations and then ultimately deciding to have your own business?
Mindset is everything, and it's whether you're transitioning from the military or whatever. And that one is one of the things that I really, in my personal development, actually working and to get myself better and just in all areas of life, you have to have the right mindset. Because if you think it's not going to happen or you think you can't do it, it won't happen. So how you think is really um, how you forge your way is how your journey, your destiny, whatever you want to call it, that's how it's called into being. And if you're going to think negatively all the time, because I know we've all probably met someone that every time you talk to them, it's something negative. And you're going,
Mm,
boy, does this person ever have a good moment in their life? Every time I talk to them, it's, down about this, down about that. That's the mindset that they're in. But I think once
mhm,
you change your mindset and you start thinking positively, you'll start seeing things positively and things will start to shift. So whether it's your transition on, you know what, I know who I am, I know what I bring, and I'm a good fit for this position, or I'm gonna have my get back into my family and we're gonna be great, or you know what, I'm just retired and the only thing I want to do is spend my day and fish. That is your mindset, and
mhm,
how you view things is really how you bring them into being. And I had to learn this the hard way. Um, and I know, and hopefully we've heard the Bible passages, as a man thinketh, so is he. And that is so true because if you think about it, when you are thinking that you can't do something, you won't. You won't do it. But if you have the mindset of saying, you know what, I can do that. that fuels you. It gives you energy. You're like, okay, these are the steps that I need to do to accomplish this. This is how I'm going to go about that. So your mindset is everything. You can't accomplish things externally until internally you have things taken care of. And that internal thing is your mindset. And it's, for me, it's everything. And that's when I coach people, when I talk to people, I'm like, it's your mindset. So regardless of what you're trying to accomplish, where you're trying to go, how big, how small, it's how you think about it. How you see things and how you think about things are totally related. So just think about that.
Okay. Now, with your own mindset shift, did that happen? At what point did you undergo that mindset shift? Was that before you transition? Did you have culture shock, if you will, with moving into the civilian life? At what point does that mindset shift occur, or should occur, in your opinion?
Well, for me, it was totally different. It occurred probably about 10 years or so ago before I left the military, but it wasn't just the military. It was just several things that were going on in my life that I decided, okay, I'm at a point where my back was kind of against the wall. Several things were going on in my life that were not making me happy. And I was going, wow, how did I get here? What happened? So when you start to really do that inner work and that personal development, then you start to see things and you start to figure out things. And I think for anyone, regardless of military or not, I think we all need to do that personal development and that inner work because we all think we're great, right? Nothing's wrong with me. I'm fine. I'm okay. And the hardest work that you will do is self confrontation, right? Nobody wants to confront themselves. I could tell you, Michelle, oh, yeah, you did that wrong. You shouldn't do things that way. But we can't see it in ourselves. So I think once we see that in ourselves and we start to do that work, is where we really start to improve as a person, as an individual. So my mindset shift was that in that realm of time where I really needed to work on some things within myself because I was like, well, I see things this way. Why do I see things this way? I need to forgive people. I need to forgive myself. And I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't do. As human beings, we make mistakes, we do things, and we beat ourselves up and we tell ourselves things that we wouldn't normally say to a friend. I would never say, oh, Michelle, you're so stupid. But we say that to ourselves, right? So those are the things that when you work on your mindset, those are the things that help you. Because and if you continue to tell yourself, you're stupid. Why did you do that? Or, "Oh, you made that mistake again." That plays on you, whether you realize it or not. That affects you. But if you say, you know what, I made a mistake, but you know what, I'm human. Learned the lessons, found a new way to do something, a new strategy. I won't do that again. That fuels you to be better and continue to go. And it's so important because I think a lot of us, when we are in a certain state, we make permanent decisions based on a temporary circumstance. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, that's where suicide plays in at and things of that nature because we get to a point where we think all hope is gone or,
Mhm.
we're helpless, we're hopeless. We got into this situation, we don't see a way out. But really, there is. And it just takes us really thinking and looking at things in a different way, in a different perspective. And then if, not thinking that, oh, I'm doomed, I can't make it, or I'm never going to be successful at this transition. I'm going to transition and I won't know what I'm going to do with my life, or nobody's going to want me, or I won't be able to find a job. I won't be able to provide for my family. That is all a mindset. Those are the things that we tell ourselves. And that's where you have to learn how to think differently. And I'm not saying it as a, kind of, oh, woo, 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 everything has to be so positive and so upbeat. But one of the things I learned in my personal development and with my coaching is you can't feed someone from your cup if your cup is empty, right? You have to
Mhm.
overflow. You have to have more to give. And I think a lot of times, and that's where I found it, I was giving to so many things. I was a single mother, I was in the military, I was this, and this. And then when it comes to you, you're burned out. You're going, I just don't have the energy to do this. And not that you're physically tired, you're mentally and you're emotionally tired. So you really have to work on, okay, my mindset involves a whole set of things. It's not only how I think is about things in my situation, it's how I think about myself. What do I think about myself? Um, yes, I made a mistake, but I'm a human. How do I look at the situation? Yes, I'm in a rough time right now, but I can overcome this. I can work and I can get this done. So having that kind of mentality really affects how you view things and how you pursue things.
Okay. So it sounds like from your experience, mindset shift, that whole process is not necessarily a once and done type of thing. You had to go through it several times throughout your
Yes.
career.
Yeah, it's a working process, right? It's just like learning. You're always going to learn to evolve. If once you say and think that you know everything, you stop evolving, right? You stop growing. So
Mm,
learning is continuous. And that mindset is just like that. It's not like you're going to say, "Okay, I'm good today. I've worked out all my issues and I'm great." No, you're all it's life. Life things come and go. Look at, what we're living in today. Who None of us saw this coming. None of us thought that this was going to be happening. We're what, over 2 years into a pandemic. So there's always going to be something that's going to challenge you and it's going to try you. That resilience is going to come in. But if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to be able to have that resilience. So
mm,
again, it's how you think is how you are. So resilience and mindset are hand in hand. They're partners because you can't say, "Oh, I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to be tough. I'm going to overcome. I'm going to pursue these things," if you have a negative mindset or if you're letting things block you, if you don't have boundaries. That wasn't something that I've recently learned about boundary. And we all say, "Well, what does that mean?" And it's not necessarily about this person is bad. I don't want this person in my life. Boundaries also apply to you. Are you saying yes to things that you shouldn't be saying yes to? Are you saying, "Well, you know what? I need some time for me." Or are you just saying, "Okay, well, I'm going to just be here for everyone and do things." So boundaries go and span across the board. Boundaries are, okay, I know that this person has a negative mindset. So I can only take this person as so many, it's for so long. But then it's also is, okay, you know what? I really like pleasing people, but sometimes I need to take time for myself. And that may mean you saying, "Hey, best friend, I really would like to help you move today, but I'm tired or I've had things going on. So can't help you today. Maybe I can help you tomorrow." So that's a boundary that we set up. Even a boundary for yourself. Like me, I'm always up until the wee hours of the morning working. And I had to set a boundary for myself, right? I had to say, "Okay, at this time, I need to stop working and I need to go to bed." So all of these things play into your mindset, which plays into your resilience.
I love that. I just love how those components to really play into each other. That's fantastic. Now, for those transitioning or planning to, what are some steps? How do they build resilience? How do they get through this process and be resilient and stay resilient throughout their transition to civilian life?
One thing I would like to say is you're not alone. So, some friends that have transitioned before you. Reach out to them, talk to them, ask them how was their transition. What did they do? What are some of the things that they found hard or that they found easy? And that kind of helped me just to getting different people's perspectives. And then from there, you can think about, okay, this is what I want to do, or this is how I want things to look. So you may be able to take a piece of something from 5 different people that you've spoken to and said, "Okay, well, I think this would apply to me, and I'm gonna use that." I know that the military gives, resources and, not to knock the military, I know they do the best that they can. Some of the resources are just cookie color cutter general resources, that are not really honed into your specific situation. But that's where you have your friends who have transitioned before you to talk to, use that resource. Just know that you can do it. You're not alone, but get out, talk to people. Talk to people who haven't been in the military and ask them, what are they doing? What do they see on the horizon? And just stay abreast. I know in the military we're kind of in our own little bubble because, like I said, we don't even realize that we have to buy a wardrobe right when we get out of the military because we know what that wardrobe is every single day. We know, okay, this is what I'm putting on. It's not going to change. But stay abreast of the real world, I say. And then, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that in any negative way, but just kind of think and look and see what's going on, where you want to be, how you want to fit in, how you want to impact other people. Because as you're keeping up with what's going on, you'll start to see where you want to fit in. Um, But yeah, just do that. And like I said, the greatest resources I think are those family and friends that you know who have transitioned before you. Just talking to them and getting their take. That is the most valuable thing that you can do.
Fantastic. Now, have you seen with your own experiences and in speaking with others who have transitioned, is it I would imagine it's a different experience for everyone in terms of their wherever their mindset is at the time or their preparation. How have those experiences been different and how have they been able to be resilient regardless?
I think it's just a matter of being resilient. It's just a matter of knowing who you are, and what impact you want to have or where you want to fit in. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people when they transition from the military, because we are so in such a routine, we don't
Mhm.
think outside of that routine. So I think one critical thing, if I could give any advice, is before you actually make that transition, sit down with yourself. If you got to pull out a piece of paper and say, okay, this is who I am. Where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? I mean, even from where do you want to move? Where do you want to pick up permanent residence at? Things like that. And think about it, because I have friends that have done everything. I have a friend who retired and just her and her husband are just living their best life. I have friends who have retired and picked up, government jobs and working in other areas. And so it's different for everyone. But I think what you really need to do is sit down and really think about where it is you want to be and what's going to be best for you. Because maybe it's not best for you to take on another job. Maybe your finances are fine and you figure, you know what, I can be fine with just my military retirement. It's all how you plan it. And I think that's the point, having a plan, knowing the steps that you want to take. Because just if you just go to the point where you're going, okay, boom, I'm out today. Okay, tomorrow, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Where do I go? Where do I want to be? And we don't think about that. We're not told to think about, we just go, okay, yeah, you're transitioning, you're going to be done and you're going to move on. Well, you need to think about that. You need to think, okay, do I want to move to another country and live? Do I want to, if I'm here in Texas, do I want to move to California? Okay, once I move to California, what is it I want to do? I may say, you know what, I just want to go to California and live on the beach and get up every morning and walk along the beach and have coffee. But have a plan. Think about what it is that you want to do, where you want to go, how you want to do these things. Having the plan is vital. Is vital for anyone and anything. Don't let that time creep up on you and then you're at that time and at that point where you don't know what your next step is. So, if I could say anything, just have that plan. Sit down with yourself and really think about it. Take that time, because it's not gonna you can't do it on the fly, and you can't say, "Well, I'm gonna do this, and it's really take that time and be with yourself and think about it. If you gotta write it down, if you got a journal, whatever that case may be, have your plan. And I'm not saying that your plan is gonna be executed to the letter, but at least you have a direction and you have, a thought process of how you want to go about things that will help make things easier.
Mm, I love that. Now with your own transition and you've been out for a time and your kids have experienced both in and out of the military, how have how has their resilience grown or how are you perhaps your other family members? Resilience seems to not only affect you but those around you. How have you all become more resilient?
I have to say, my children are my greatest inspiration because they are now 16 and 14. And like I said, only thing they knew their whole life was me being in the military. And they're some strong people. I have a daughter and a son, and their resilience, just how I see them look at life and go about life, is really amazing. And it's almost like what the Bible says, through the eyes of the child. And I think if we all kind of went back to that time where we were pure, we were innocent, but of course we're adults, right? We have bills and we have worries and we have all of these different things that sometimes we don't see things um, clearly or in their purest forms. But my kids, they're pretty resilient. The fact that I'm home, they've started doing well. My daughter's getting ready to go to college, and just looking at her, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm at this point, right? I'm gotta child getting ready to go to college. I'm like, how did I get here? Because yesterday she was this little girl who was, holding on to me saying, mommy, mommy, mommy. Um, but I think you being there, and again, like I was saying, just you being there in the house, you don't necessarily have to do any extravagant acts. I think that gives them that confidence to be resilient because even though they don't voice it, sometimes they talk about, well, mom, you're strong because you were in the military and you've done these things. And I'm like, oh, really? And sometimes I don't even realize that they even gave thought to that, right? I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, you're strong and we see you. So you're an example, you're in a light. And to your children, to the people around you, I look at my brother and his wife and my nephew, and I think they all kind of look up to me, so to speak, by seeing how resilient I was. The things 30 years in the military, 30 years of sacrificing, missing birthdays, missing Mother's Days, not being around my children. Those are the things that we sacrifice when we take on this great job of serving our country. And whether people voice it or not, they see that and they see that resilience in us. And I think that makes them proud and that makes them resilient to go on. So just you serving and being who you are and being around your loved ones, you give them that resilience that they need to continue on in their life.
Mm, I love it. I love how that it's kind of a reciprocal
Yeah.
process of both you and your children and perhaps other family members becoming more resilient. That's fantastic. Well, Trina, how can people get in contact with you?
Well, you can contact me. My email is trina@trinalmartin.com. I'm doing speaking and I coach women, especially women in tech, women of color in tech. I speak to corporations, so you can email me, reach out to me. I'm also on LinkedIn and I have a podcast called Trina Talk. So if you love podcasts and you want to listen, go out and listen to Trina Talk. I think you'll find that very inspirational.
Fantastic. We will include all of those in the show notes. Trina, it's been amazing. You are the resilience guru. You know how to be resilient from your own experiences, and I'm sure you are motivating others to do the same. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.